We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. We have our favorite guest on. Old Soul is joining us, and we're even further separated apart. I'm in Savannah, Georgia. You're in Las Vegas, Nevada. We got 3 hours time zone difference between us, but somehow, some way, we were able to figure this shit out, and here we are.
Technology.
Technology, no question about it. I wanted to bring up something before we get into it. I did something on this on TikTok. I had kind of a momentous day today, a milestone, if you will. On TikTok, I today surpassed 300,000 followers. But I but I want to qualify that, okay? I don't call them followers because I'm not a leader and I'm not a fucking cultist. So I call them my peers because that really was the whole point of doing TikTok wasn't to make Mike famous because I can't I can't buy dinner with fame, whatever limited fame I have. Now that said,
Unless you're a Kardashian.
well, yeah, that said, I was walking through the Orlando airport with my son and my wife, and we're rushing around doing whatever, and this very tall man, foreign man, I think. I don't know where he was from, but a very tall man walks up and goes, "Hey, ain't you on TikTok?" I say, "Yeah." He goes, "I love you, man." And he shook my hand and I kept going. I said, "Thank you." And it was great. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make with the 300,000, it wasn't about, it was far exceeds anything I ever imagined. I thought maybe I get a couple, maybe 10,000 people. We do the podcast. It'd be fun. Um, so no matter what I have over the 10,000, I'm fucking pleased. Uh, but the point of it wasn't to be famous or make money or anything like that. None of that is of any use to me at this point. But what it was I wanted to be a rallying point for people of a like mind, some
Mhm.
loud shit stirrer to have people go, I want to listen to that motherfucker. And he goes, yeah, I was thinking that. The celebration I have for it isn't so much about my accomplishment because it's really not my accomplishment. The fact is, we were able to cull out a bunch of older and younger people of a like mind, bring them together, and hopefully give us a bigger voice and more power. Because at least the older folks, we have a lot of experience, and at our age, people are trying to push us aside. I said, fuck that. We're going to get loud and proud and see what happens. So, by reaching that 300,000 level, uh, I'm excited, not for me, but for all of us, because we did it.
Yeah, I feel like that's not a small feat. Like
No,
300K.
not for an old white guy with an attitude sitting in his living room. Fuck. I didn't have to twerk. I didn't have to be a thirst trap. Well, I tried being a thirst trap, and frankly, old soul, that shit didn't work. But so I just came out with the attitude, starts talking politics, and who the fuck knew?
And in an authentic way. And that's what people relate to the most. And it's a constant reminder that like we're not tripping, we're not crazy, because if you listen to the right, that's all we do. We're so frantic and this and that. But it's a constant reminder that, when you don't hear someone who has like the same mindset as you, not even always the same opinion, because you don't have to agree 24/7, but the same mindset that yeah, this is crazy. This doesn't make any sense. And, that type of stuff, it makes you feel like you're not alone. And I know, like, I used to feel like that during the pandemic, like, am I by myself? Because what you see on television doesn't reflect your ideas, what you're feeling, and what you're thinking. So when someone else comes along and they're not doing what you're seeing on television and they're saying what it is that you want to say, you're like, oh, crap, it's not just me. There's others out there like me. So,
You know
yeah.
what? The interesting thing about doing this TikTok stuff and now doing the podcast is when I first started doing it, my friends and family go, "Oh, he's doing TikTok. That's fucking Mike just being Mike." And now when people ask, they go, "That motherfucker's on TikTok. He's doing something." So now all of a sudden they take it seriously and they're proud of the fact, and I'm glad of that. I I I have a lot of people come to me and they say, "How do you get a lot of followers in TikToks?" or in any platform for that matter. And I tell them the key is don't be going after fucking followers. Don't be doing that. Just do the content. Uh, do content to the best of your ability, and then make sure that you keep doing it consistently. The followers will come if you're doing a decent job. And that's
Mhm.
really what you got to do. And that's what I did. This was a test, actually. I'm going to sit down, do nothing special, not edit anything, just say what I have to say and see what the fuck happens. And fortunately, it worked out. And that's what I would tell anybody who's going on social media. Just be yourself. Let the chips fall where they may and hope for the best. If it works, great. If it doesn't, who the fuck cares? So I appreciate the fact that all those people are following. Now, the only thing I ask is all 300,000 of those motherfuckers start listening to the podcast. God damn it. Then we're going to be a power.
Yeah, but you know what? You said something to consistency, and that is a key point because, like, I know just like the people who listen know that when we wake up in the morning or when I'm having an insomnia night, I know I'm gonna get that video regardless, even if you're pre-recording it and you're
Yeah.
letting us know, like, it's gonna be there. So we have something to look forward to. We know you're gonna be consistent, and it's been times where I've stopped following channels because it's been so up and down. I don't know when you're loading, when you're not loading. Sometimes if you're loading, it's like dated information, and in politics, you really can't. So I do think sometimes you should take a break. But when I saw like you just pre-record episodes and you do take your breaks,
Oh,
so
I
that's
do.
good. But being consistent and knowing that you're dependable and reliable when it comes to us just, having our own little corner of the internet,
Well,
that's a contributing factor.
people always say to me, how do you sit around and do TikToks all fucking day and then you do the podcast for an hour? It's as if I take up my whole day doing it. I started out today with 5 TikToks. I
Mhm,
got up at 9 in the morning because I slept in. I got up, put my clothes on, walked down to the end of the pier there, right on the intercoastal waterway. And I
mhm.
sat down there for an hour and I did 5 TikToks. I went back in and my wife and I went into Savannah, had fun. That's all the time I spent. And now when I came and sat down here, I did a couple more TikToks just to catch some things up. But that took about
Yeah.
20 minutes. And we'll do this in an hour, hour and a half. So I don't spend my whole day doing it. It's not that hard, fortunately. And I just pump them out when I have them. And it may seem like I'm here all day, but I'm not. I wouldn't spend all day doing TikToks. I'm nuts, but I'm not fucking crazy.
You have a good work-life balance.
Yeah, yeah, I do. Because I'm a lazy bastard too. I mean, I'm not going to sit here. I mean, why do you think I don't edit anything? I don't edit the podcast. I don't edit because I know when I start editing, it's
Mhm.
going to be longer than actually producing it. I don't want any part of that shit. I'm just going to lay it out bare and let them see what the fuck happens. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about old soul.
Well, did
Um,
you make any resolutions?
um, yeah, yeah, I did. I think I talked about it on TikTok. My two resolutions is to be louder, more obnoxious, more audacious, and more tenacious when it comes to Trumplafucks in 2024 than I was in 2023. The second one was to be the coolest and the most badass grandpa ever. Those are the only two things. And the only reason I made those resolutions is because I know I got that fucking made. I'm not going to fail on these.
Can you be any more cool as a grandpa though?
It's hard to imagine. I realize it's old, so it's funny. For as cool as I think I am, my granddaughter's constantly putting me in my place. And I think she gets that from grandma because grandma does the same thing. I know a lot of people out here watch TikTok or watch the podcast, think I'm some tough guy and I don't take shit from anybody. Well, I do take shit from two people, and they are my granddaughter and my wife. There was an old comic in the Sunday papers called BC, and it was about these cavemen, and they always carried clubs around. And there was
Mhm.
one comic I remember that I relate to so much. And the guy stood on this rock, he held his club over his head, and he says, "I'm afraid of no man and just one woman." And that's fucking me. That is me.
Except for you have two with one woman and one girl, but she'll be a woman one day.
Yeah, she was. Well, she wasn't around when I first said that, but and I'm not afraid of her. I just kind of obey her. It's the same thing with my wife and my granddaughter. I can do what I'm told and everything's cool, or I can push back and my life is hell. So it's not a tough choice. I just do as I'm told. Nobody gets fucking hurt. I wanted to ask you the big news that came out last night. We're recording this on Wednesday night, but just came out for us was the release of these Jeffrey Epstein flight logs or list or whatever. And I'm so confused by this because I'm getting different things from different people. I'm seeing people
Yeah.
on TikTok announcing things that the news articles I read don't say that. So, you have any thoughts about this new list? I think you and I have kind of the same plan when it comes to it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to jump the gun on anything like that. Speculation is not something that I'm a fan of. I have my own personal thoughts of who would be on the list. Um, but I would just, for me, I'm just waiting for more information to come out, some confirmations, some actual documents instead of speculations. I heard this, I thought that. That's not fact-based at all. So I'm just waiting for actual proof of these flight logs, and then I can go from there. But I don't have anything to seek my teeth into except for opinions and thoughts and mostly speculations at this point.
Well, apparently there is some documents on the internet, but I also heard that site crashed, as you might expect, with a lot of people going to it. I saw
Yeah,
one article that was published, and I don't know what time it was published, but they basically said they're not releasing all of it all at the same time. They're releasing it in pieces. I assume that's true. And the
yeah.
two prominent names this news source said were Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton, neither of which
Mhm.
I'm surprised about. Uh,
No, there's
but
nothing
but
shocking there.
but then if you watch TikTok, they're saying, oh, they talk about Alan Dershowitz, they talk about Donald Trump, they're talking about this. Of all the information that I've heard so far, I haven't heard Joe Biden's name or Hunter Biden's name or Jill Biden's name. None of that. And I don't think you'll see that on there. There is another guy, RFK Jr., and I know he's no, really, I know he's definitely on there because I saw this
Yeah.
dumb fuck doing an interview admitting he knew uh, uh, Jeffrey Epstein and went to the island. Maybe he's just trying to knock it down a little bit before it gets released because he's trying to run for president on top of it.
All you have to do is sit back and watch how the left is handling this situation. Like, oh, okay, we'll just chill, wait for everything to come out, and then we can go from there.
Right.
Versus how the right is handling it. Like they are in a frenzy. And the reason that they are in a frenzy is whether they want to admit it or not. Some of the people who they idolize the most, they have genuine concerns, and I don't blame them for being concerned that certain people will be on that list, in particular, one certain person. But at the same time, I don't know why they would be shocked. There's pictures all over the internet with Trump and Epstein in it. And
Yeah.
he made comments about, I think her name is Maxwell. Is that her name? Oh,
Ghislaine
I just wish
Maxwell.
you the
Yeah.
best. Yeah, I just wish you the best of luck. You know, he
Yeah.
couldn't even bring himself to say anything bad because he knows, well, if I say something bad, then what can come out as a result of that. So he was keeping those comments to a minimum. And when do you ever know Trump to keep comments to a minimum? There's a
Yeah.
reason he did that.
Well,
Um,
and something to note too, he wished Ghislaine Maxwell the best of luck.
mhm.
She's now in fucking prison, so it didn't exactly work.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's that Republican guy that be that jumped in and helped her. I don't know. It's
Well, I
just
think
the
I,
reaction that I'm seeing is I'm not worried that Biden is on there. I'm not even worried that Hunter Biden is on there. But they are so concerned about who's on there, this and that, and stirring up all this confusion because a lot of times to muddy the waters and to, kind of minimize the facts, it's a lot of confusion around it and a lot of just craziness. And I think that's what they're trying to do with this. That way, when everything is revealed, you don't know what's right, what's wrong. They already have their talking points and stuff. So I think they really are trying to dilute the actual facts of whenever all of the facts come out. And I'm just waiting for more to come out before I speculate.
well, I think the important thing to remember is if these come out and when they come out, or if they've already come out, if it's a
Hmm.
list of names somehow associated with Jeffrey Epstein,
Hmm.
that doesn't suggest that everybody on that list has done anything illegal. And I can say that because I know at least four of the people on that list are victims. So they're not guilty of anything. They're the
So
victims.
it's just a flight list, a flight log, right?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard everything from lists to documents. I've heard some things implicate Alan Dershowitz in actual sexual activity. I don't know how that works with a list. That's why I'm saying I think you and I have both the same right idea about this. Sit
Yeah,
back and wait till the dust settles so we know what really is happening instead of speculating or making judgments on anybody. We got to wait and see what happens because evidence is the key.
right.
I'm guessing you and I have been associated with some criminal motherfuckers at one time or another, maybe not even knowing it, you know? Does
Yeah,
that make us guilty of their crimes? I don't think so. And I'm not trying to give everybody who's on the list um, a pass because let's be honest, these people were on a list after he'd been convicted of child sex trafficking. So they knew what they were getting
right.
into. And it is
Mhm.
embarrassing that they are tied to them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they did anything. I mean, they might have. Bill Clinton, I don't know. Um,
I don't
Donald
see
Trump,
how me
definitely.
personally, how I could be around someone like Maxwell or Epstein and not know what they're up to. Because I mean, a red flag to me is like, why do you have all these children around you? You know,
Yeah,
I don't, it'd be different if you was like a playboy in Hollywood and every time I turned around, you had you know, a supermodel or something or a famous actress on your name, even a D-list celebrity actress, whoever on your arm. I could see that. Oh, you always got arm candy on you, okay. But when it's a point to where it's always underage girls, minors, or if I'm constantly looking at the women or the girls in your life and I'm wondering how old they are, to me, that's a red flag. So I don't understand how people in his orbit, people in his circle, how they did not know, and then how they were able to just ignore it or justify it or excuse it or whatever they tell themselves to make themselves be okay with that type of behavior, or for those who was benefiting from that type of behavior. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say that it's after he was convicted. I'm trying to say it's the fact that they were allowing themselves to be surrounded by someone like that in the first place.
here's an interesting contrast. Jeffrey pedophile. Jeffrey Epstein is a known pedophile. Okay, we know that.
Mhm.
And he
Yeah.
is lauded and fawned over by the rich, wealthy, and the famous.
Mhm.
If you take that same pedophile and put him in Gen Pop in a fucking prison, he'll get his ass killed. What's
Yeah.
that say about these rich, famous people? They're willing to accept anybody that has money. You put them in prison. They don't give
Mhm.
a fuck. This guy's going down. It's a sad commentary on rich and famous people.
Yeah, they leech off of each other, you
They
know?
do.
When they run in the same circles, this person can supply us with girls. This person can supply us with drugs. This person could supply us with, you know, maybe they have connections and we can get, you know, legal services and get our way through these loopholes or tax loopholes or whatever it is. It's like they're beneficial to each other. And, you know, a lot of that behavior is pretty disgusting behavior, underground behavior.
Right.
And then every now and then you'll have someone like Epstein who is pretty deplorable. And then what he was doing was so extreme. It's not even something that could just be forever swept under the rug. Because a lot of
Right.
the stuff that they do, we don't even know about it. You
Well, it
know, so
can't.
when you're that pervasive, like with that, and it's like out there, it's a known secret and you can't hide it, think about how disgusting you have to be.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people will say, well, Jeffrey Epstein just blackmailed a bunch of people. Well, that's
Mm-mm.
well and good, but they have to have done something in the fucking first place to get blackmailed. And maybe he
Exactly.
did blackmail them. And, maybe they did deserve it. He's got these people on the hook for a lifetime coming out and they figure, fuck, I'm busted already. I might as well go back down there and enjoy myself because he's got enough already. And
Yeah.
that sounds like how Jeffrey Epstein got his money. And here's
Mhm.
an interesting thing. I read something one time that Jeffrey Epstein looked at Donald Trump as kind of like a mentor.
Ugh.
He learned everything he learned from Donald Trump. And when you think about Donald Trump, the blackmail, the pressure, the bullying, that type of stuff,
Mhm.
That's exactly Donald Trump. It seems to make sense that Jeffrey Epstein would find a way to even make more money than Donald Trump using the same tactics. And that's what appears to have happened.
Yeah, he used the same tactics, but he just wasn't as moronic as Donald Trump is. So he was able to grow wealth
Right.
from his misdeeds. I'm trying to choose my words carefully.
No,
From
don't.
his misdeeds
This is
versus
this is the Rational Boomer podcast. Appropriate isn't necessary.
versus Trump. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what he does, he's not gonna profit from. I'm was born and raised in Vegas. They teach us probability in like the third grade.
Really.
How you ever bankrupt a casino is beyond me. Even, you had Maddie on last week, and
Right.
she was just saying the machines are geared to win. Like it's set up to win. Um, how you bankrupt a casino, I will never ever wrap my mind around that. To me, that's impossible. Like that is it's literally impossible, but somehow he did it. So
Well, I
the
know how
fact
he
that
did it.
Jeffrey Epstein
I know how he
how?
did it. It's out of his ego and his insecurity. When he was
Mhm.
building the casino, he wanted to build it so elaborate, so big, so audacious. And the people around him said, listen, man, you can only count on making this much money a day
Yeah,
off the casino and off of the monies you bring in. If you build it this big and this crazy, you'll never make up enough money to pay it off.
yeah.
And Donald Trump, in his uh, own intelligence, says, that's bullshit. I'm going to do it my way because I know better. And then
Mm.
when he did it, of course, he failed. He didn't know better. He was way underwater before he even
Mm.
started. And that's how he failed.
I mean, but he was, when you think about building it, you know, he was getting away with not paying contractors when
Right.
they did sue and get money for their labor. It was like pennies on a dollar.
Right.
You know what I mean? So how do you cheat contractors in building a casino? Have the casino built, have people come to the casino, and you still bankrupt it. Like,
Well, the real question is how do you um, cheat all these contractors, sexually assault women,
mhm,
and still have people vote for you? That's the fucking mystery.
I don't know.
I
And
don't know either.
part of me, which don't like, I don't understand. Part of the thing is when you look at his Truth Social posts, like how outrageous they are lately, he is manic.
Right.
Like he is manic. He is all over the place. I just saw today that I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
He released proof that the 2020 election was stolen.
I heard about this.
It was a PDF of like complaints that his supporters made.
Wow.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's kind of like when they wanted to not certify the election, they'd always reference, well, there was 100 people in Congress that thought it was bad, so it must be bad. I even heard that when he was trying to reference certain things that
Yeah.
prove what he's trying to say, he was referencing his own fucking post on Truth Social. What a fucking idiot.
It was like complaints from like MAGA supporters. It, it was like crazy stuff. Like I guess like it should have taken one of them said something like, and I'm sitting here reading the PDF. I couldn't make it through. It was so stupid. But one of them was saying like, I guess if you have like 160,000 ballots and you're supposed to carry it from like this location to that location, it should only take like an hour or something. And for whatever reason, it took 2 hours. So in between, they must have been swapping ballots for an hour. I don't. It was just, it was so ridiculous. But the funny slash sad part about it is his supporters are like, "Here's our proof. Here's our proof." And it's like, what? Did you read it? Did you see what it was? Like, I could have sent the complaint to Georgia. And I think the sad part about it is all of these weird, bogus complaints were investigated.
Yeah.
Like they checked all of this already. All of this has been debunked. So Trump got someone, because I'm pretty sure he doesn't know how to put a PDF file together to save his life. But he got someone to just type up a PDF file for all his conspiracy theories. He posted it and said, "This is proof," and people are just running with it. In the meantime, I'm sitting here cracking up because it's like it's just insane.
Well, he's basically saying, let's manufacture some bullshit proof and then
Yeah,
send it out and say it's true. And that's not out of line with Donald Trump. Donald Trump does it when he talks all the time. He
yeah.
spews bullshit and he just does it
Hmm.
over and over again. And he does it in such a way that certain people buy into it just because Donald Trump said it strongly. But what they fail to remember is Donald Trump is a pathological liar. Anything that comes out of his mouth can't be trusted. At the very least, should be checked. And they don't. They just parrot everything he says.
Absolutely. And I used to say, and I will give him credit for this because I've always said what he says in public, at press conferences, rallies, interviews, he never says that in his court filings. However, this past week, he proved me wrong. He has been saying all of this stuff in court filings. And I'm like, in legal briefs, he has been saying this stuff. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. I think one of them, he was like referring to the Grinch that stole Christmas when he was talking about Jack Smith.
Right,
So
right.
as I'm reading, I'm not even an attorney, and I'm like, how are you putting this, Dr. Seuss? Like I didn't get any of that, but he's putting it in legal briefs and filing it for courts of appeals and this and that. And so I think maybe people had asked his supporters, like, hey, how come he doesn't put this stuff in legal filings that he's telling you? And maybe it dawned on him and his legal team that, hey, we have to put this in legal filings. I don't know why they're putting this stuff in there, but they're
Well, so,
doing that now. So
well, gives you an
there's a new one.
idea, gives you an idea how desperate he is. I think his lawyers especially know that some of the things that Donald Trump says just won't play in court. Nobody's going to believe it. The lawyers are going to get sanctioned if they keep pushing this stuff, and they've come
Yeah.
close. But what Donald Trump is trying to win in the court of public opinion. Somehow he
Mhm.
thinks that's going to save him, that enough people will get behind him and they'll just drop all charges and not punish him. I mean, that's how desperate he is. The only other thing that shows his desperation, he's saying, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to win the presidential election and then I'll get out from underneath this. Well, if that's your fucking strategy, you're in sorry shape because he has no chance of winning the presidential election. This guy is completely flailing. He doesn't know what to do. There's nothing he can do to get out from under this. And I've said this before, if when he took office in 2016, he just shut his mouth and let people around him help him get things done, he wouldn't be in this position right now. All this stuff that's coming out, nobody would have ever known about. But he couldn't shut his mouth, and he's put him in this position now. And I can't possibly feel sorry for the fuck. He's getting exactly what he deserves, and he did it to himself.
Yeah, most of it, not all, because when it came to the people that he surrounded himself with, those weren't the type of people that you would want to be acting on your behalf.
Right.
If he would have surrounded himself with a different group of people, it could have went different because I do think he's one of those people where he loved praises and he loved adoration. So if he would have enacted policies where people were actually loving what he was doing, they were praising him for what he was doing, and it came from the people around him and the American people, he could have went down a different track, not because he liked doing what was right, but because he was getting that high that he needs from everybody kissing his feet and just thinking he's the best thing to walk this earth. Um, Instead, even though the American people wasn't happy, the people around him was giving him that adoration and praise that he needed. But they were just doing it for their own benefit, and he wasn't smart enough to see that.
Well, Donald Trump had trouble with anybody that was around him that worked for him
Mhm.
that wasn't submissive to him. And the
True.
problem is that he had all these wild, stupid, crazy, illegal ideas, and a certain faction of
Mhm.
those people do, like Alina Habab, what is it, Haba, Alina Haba, and the Roger Stones. They were complicit in all this stuff, and all the Steve Bannon and all those people around him, even Bill Barr to
Mhm.
a certain extent. But there were those people that got to a point and go, no, that's too fucking crazy. People like General Mattis and General Kelly, they said,
Yeah.
fuck it, I'm out of here because they
Yeah, and
couldn't
that's when you
believe
started
what was
seeing the
going on.
real crackpots come through, like Rudy Giuliani and
Right.
yeah. So I think at the end of the day, it's safe to say no matter who was around him, he wasn't gonna listen to anybody.
No, I don't think he's ever listened to anybody, and that's why he's been a perpetual failure. Everything he's
Yeah.
done, from the casinos to his presidential term, it was an absolute failure, and it just amazes me as I sit and watch people who still support Donald Trump talk, and they just parrot these absolutely ridiculous things. I try to imagine what I would do if I was talking to a Trumplafuck. And like you, when I would hear them say the things I see them say on TikTok or on YouTube or something like that, I don't know if I could stop myself from laughing. It's so
Yeah.
absurd. It's so ridiculous. It's so childish. It's like we're dealing with middle school kids, or in my day, junior high school kids, 13-year-old boys who talk a lot of shit but know nothing.
Yeah. And I mean, look who is leading them. You have Nikki Haley, who I'm not a fan of at all. However, I don't think that a contender for the president of the United States should be calling her bird brain. I don't think he should be saying stuff like Coco Chow or, the Chung flu and all of these childish names that he loves to give people. Even when you think about him calling like Meatball Ron,
Uh,
like how old are you, sir?
Well,
7 or 74? Like, what's going on? But I mean, they think that those behaviors are acceptable when you're following someone who thinks that behavior is acceptable.
I have to say this. As much as I don't like Donald Trump and his nicknames are ridiculous, Meatball Ron does kind of fit. I mean, you got to give him that. It does kind of fit. And then you've got Letitia Peekaboo
And
James.
he went after him for the shoes, even though Trump wears lifts himself. I kind of like the whole lift thing that he was doing.
See, I'm not a tall guy, but I've never wore lifts because my wife is like an inch taller than I am. And everybody goes, doesn't that bother you? No, motherfucker, it doesn't bother me. I am who I am. And whether I'm this tall or that tall, I'm still perfectly comfortable with myself. But these guys are obviously so insecure that they've got to boost their height some way. Donald Trump also calls Letitia James Letitia Peekaboo James. Now, you've
Mhm.
said that you understand what he's going with that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, is there some other reason to do it? I mean, that's pretty blatant if that's Old Soul is suggesting it's kind of a variation on a
It's
racial
jigaboo.
slur. Yeah,
It's jigaboo. Yeah.
yeah. Do you think that's really
And
true?
yeah, that's exactly what it is. When he first started doing it, and there was a few outlets that called him out on it. And then if you notice that he is the only person in the Republican Party that calls her that. No,
Good point.
everybody else, they call her racist. They call her, she has a vendetta. They say, she ran on, I'm going to get Trump, which is so weird because if Trump was so popular, her saying, I'm going to target Trump would have gotten her not elected instead of elected, but whatever. He is the only person who calls her that. That's how racist it is. And that's how much they know is racist. When he says those extreme racist things, he is the only person that says it. You'll hear them say stuff like, Lindsey Graham, I don't really agree with the vermin comment, but I don't care what language he uses as long as everything gets done, blah, blah, blah. But they don't say it themselves. And when it comes to Letitia James, he is the only person that calls her that because it is so racist and they know how racist it is that not even they will be caught dead saying it. That's
But
exactly what it is that he's calling her. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And Trump does not care. He goes right on national television. He says it. His white supremacist followers, they love it that he has no shame in saying it. It doesn't bother him at all. He says it, he tweets it. repeatedly. It's insane that he just does not care about that.
What's ironic is that Donald Trump can say racist, stupid, moronic, inaccurate, flat out lies, and the
Mhm.
Republicans always come back and say, "Well, I think what he really meant," or "I don't care what he says, I just like his policies." But the moment Joe Biden stutters once, oh, the fucker's got dementia. That's how childish these people are and how desperate they are uh, to win in 2024. They are
Mhm.
desperate because they know Donald Trump is a fucking joke. And if he is the nominee, he's going to lose. There's just no question about it.
Yeah, they're so desperate. Have you seen the shift that they're trying to do now with the border?
Oh, what? No, go ahead. Tell us.
So I saw an interview with Jake Tapper and Mike Johnson, who is so shady. I told you offline, like there's something going on with that guy. But anyway, he did an interview with Jake Tapper. Him and the Republican Party went down to the border and they had a press conference and they were
Right,
talking about Joe Biden needs to come to the border and it's a humanitarian crisis and it's this long word salad statement that he read. So then he goes on Jake Tapper and Jake Tapper says, okay, well, what about the $44 billion that Biden is offering to fix the border? And he's no. That's not going to work. We can't throw money at the problem. We need policies in place. We need this. We need that. So Jake Tapper is telling him like, hey, Joe Biden's trying to do X, Y, and Z. Why don't you go along with that? And he's just like, no. It's a policy thing. It's not about throwing money at the border. And Jake Tapper asked him, okay, so those border patrol agents, they don't need any additional help at the border. Like, it didn't make sense. So it's clear as day that they're trying to switch from the Hunter Biden and the impeachment thing to the border crisis that they're talking about
right,
now. But they want to complain about it. And anytime you ask about policies or ideas that Democrats and Biden is coming up with to try to fix that problem, they shut it down so quick. They don't want to hear about it. And it's so clear. And I'm sitting here like, I don't think they realize that pivoting from impeachment to the border, and even Trump made a big post about it, it's going to fall flat when Democrats come out and say, okay, you're complaining, here's the solutions, help us fix it. And they don't have any rebuttal for that. And I can see it right now. That's exactly what's going to happen as soon as they start trying to have hearings about the border or whatever. And Democrats are going to be coming up with their proposals, and Republicans are going to keep shutting everything down. And it's just going to be like, okay, what are your proposals? And they're not going to have anything. They're going to be caught with their pants down.
uh,
All and he even sat there. His eyes were big. He was like he didn't know what to say at one point. Like a question caught him off guard.
right.
So you can tell on the holiday break what they've been thinking about what they can do to make Joe Biden look bad. So they've come up with the border crisis. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is supposed to blow up spectacularly.
Well, Mike Johnson isn't a very experienced politician, and it shows.
He don't
When
even
we
have a bank account.
and he doesn't have a bank account, and now he's got to work with Joe Biden to try to come up with a budget. The last motherfucker you want talking about a budget, a guy that can't even have a bank account. But
When you
it's it.
think about the bank account thing, right? They make like what, 175K a year?
Yeah,
So they're making like what, 15 grand. I'm just gonna give a ballpark figure a month, right?
right, right.
And then like let's say they get paid bi-weekly instead of monthly. That's $7,500 per paycheck, right? Are you going to Walmart at the check cashing place and you're cashing that $7,500 paycheck? Where are you cashing your paycheck at?
Yeah, exactly.
Where does your paycheck go? That is so like you can go pick it up from Congress even when you're on break, or maybe they'll mail you your paycheck. But again, where are you cashing your check at?
Well, the question
I
is,
went down a rabbit hole with this guy and I couldn't figure it out. So it's just gnawing at me that there's something going on there and I can't figure it out.
the
But
thing
anyway,
is,
sorry.
we hear he doesn't have a bank account, and people are questioning why doesn't he have a bank account? Uh, and there's no way he doesn't have a bank account. The
It's
question
going
is, why is he
somewhere.
hiding the bank account?
Exactly. That
Why
money
is he hiding it?
is going somewhere, is being deposited into someone's account. There's no way that he's getting $7,500 bi-weekly if they get paid bi-weekly or 15 grand a month. And there's no trace of a check or a transaction or anything. And it's like, how do you even pay your car note or your mortgage or anything? Do you just go to Walmart and get a money order? Like, where is the money? Where is it go? And it's bothering me that nobody is like asking him, like, hey, how do you cash your check every 2 weeks?
You know what I
Where
find?
do you pick it up? Like, nobody is asking him common sense questions. Like, just ask him.
The question I would have is when they asked about the money that Biden wants to supply to the border, and
Yeah.
he said, we can't throw money at it. We have to have policies. Are we
Right.
then to assume that all these policies are free, that there's no money needed for these policies that they want? The problem is that you're right. They don't want Joe Biden to look like he's winning anything. This is what they
Yeah.
did to Obama. And this is
Hmm.
what they've done to Biden. They obstruct everything, even if they like it, because they're afraid it's going to make them look good and they're going to lose an election. They dealt with the Hunter Biden. They failed miserably trying to impeach Joe Biden. That failed miserably. Now they're going to try to impeach Mayorkas again, and that's not going to fucking work. And they're going to talk about the border. Every Trump will fuck I talk about. The borders are wide open. No, they're not. They're not much different than they were when Donald Trump was in. They always said, well, Donald Trump built the wall. I said, that's great. Was it a good wall? And they say, yeah, it was a great wall. Donald Trump built it. I said, why do we have a problem now? I thought Donald Trump fixed it. Would they take the wall down when Trump left? And does he have it down at Mar-a-Lago? Where the fuck is it?
Here's the thing about the border crisis is there's been so many deportations, and it's actually getting better
Yeah,
that we just opened 3 ports of entry. You don't hear about that on the news
no.
because people are being turned away. People are being deported. And for me, it's like, why don't people know that? Why do I have to go on ground news and read it? And you have a whole spokes team for the White House. They don't know that we opened 3 ports of entry because we actually were like containing it and we were actually deporting people and we were actually turning people away. And the terrorists that they're talking about, oh, we just caught 300 terrorists. The point is that they were caught. They didn't get in. And it's like, I don't understand why they're not making it, why they're not announcing the progress that they are making at the border in spite of Republicans'
And, and
destructive,
and if they are so worried
destructiveness.
about terrorists, how come they're not celebrating the 600 or 700 terrorists that we have in jail currently? Because they didn't come from over the border, because they came within their own ranks. I mean, every
No, those
argument
are
they have is
political
ridiculous.
those are political prisoners.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they're still fucking still prisoners, so fuck them. Um, do you get the feeling now as we watch what's going on here, the
Mhm.
Republicans have been obstructing and lying and bullshitting, and they got away with it for 5, 6 years. They were doing this. Do you get the same sense I do that it's all falling apart for them? The wheels are coming off the wagon. That what they have been doing all these years is no longer working. They're losing ground every time they talk.
I don't think that they realize it. Well, not all of them. Those who do realize it, they are like, you know what, I'm just gonna cut my losses and get up out of here. But the there are some who are still delusional. There are some who feel safe when they shouldn't. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene know that she's in a district that no matter how extreme she is, no matter what she does, she's going to get reelected. You know what I mean? So she doesn't have the same fears and worries as other people do. So I think that some of them know it, some of them don't. Um,
I think
but I do think that some of them are just flat out delusional as well because they're so detached from the American people. Because Comer, he said like this Christmas and Thanksgiving, the American people, they're sitting around and the number one thing on their mind is Biden and where are they getting all this money and the Biden corruption. Like he literally said that. So
yeah.
for him to, I don't know if he believed it when he said it, but I'm pretty sure there are some people who really think that that's the number one thing on America's mind right now is, oh my gosh, a $200,000 loan. How did that? I can't eat my Thanksgiving dinner because of that. Just
And
forget the
apparently
people who couldn't afford Thanksgiving dinner. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I thought the biggest thing to them was the inflation. Now it's Hunter Biden. Now it's Mayorkas. Now it's whatever the fuck. It's 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 amazing to me that how they keep jumping around. Look,
Mhm.
if you and I or anybody who listens to this podcast happen to work for the Trump administration, he takes office on January 20th, 2016. By
Mhm.
January 21st, you and I and anybody with half a brain going, fuck no, I'm out of here. This is not going to go well. Yet we still have people in 2024, January, 4th, and they're still saying, no, that's my guy. How
You know,
stupid are these people?
I'm not Omarosa. I read her book, and I wouldn't have been in the Trump administration in the first place.
Right.
Because if I'm hearing him say the N word around me, we got a problem. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be in your administration. And even though nobody has told you the truth thus far in your life, you supposed to hear it at least one time, and you supposed to hear it from me. That's how I would roll. Being near Trump and the White House and all the other crap that he had going on, for me, it's not worth it to be quiet and to allow this type of behavior and mindset to just be so pervasive around me. Absolutely not. So I wouldn't have made it on. I wouldn't have made it past one day. I
So
wouldn't have
many
did it.
too many people are
I
enamored
wouldn't
with the
even made
money
it
and the
past the apprentice.
fame and
I was
and the
so
power, and they just have to fucking get it. So they will do anything and acquiesce to anything that Donald Trump wants. I tell you what, old soul, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
sweet.
We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Old Soul is with me on the show today. I'm in Georgia, Savannah to be specific, and Old Soul is in Las Vegas, Nevada. And
Yep.
we're reaching across the country to do the podcast. And it's always a pleasure to have Old Soul on the podcast. She adds so much to it. It makes me wonder, maybe I should just let her talk and shut up. The show might be a lot better if I did that. But I can't because I don't shut up myself, and I'm always excited about talking to Old Soul. Now, before we came on the show, Old Soul, there was something you wanted to address, and it's regarding an email that another listener, another guest that's been on the show, Eric, who's from Iowa, he brought something
Mhm.
up, and you wanted to address that. So please do.
Yeah, so he said that in Iowa, they wanted to ban certain things from the SNAP, the EBT, the
Right.
food stamp card, like fresh meats and cheeses. And then you were like, I don't know why they would want to do that.
Yeah,
The only thing
exactly.
is, this it's always been like that. And then there was another email as well, where she said it's not, there's food deserts even if you have a grocery store, which is so true. And I'm so glad she wrote that email, because you really do. When you go to the grocery store, you buy what you can afford.
Right.
So for me, it's like if I see 4 cans of green beans on sale for, $5 for 4 cans, I'm going to get those 4 cans to feed my children versus buying just a bunch of green beans like fresh. And then that's maybe like $7 or $8. You know what I mean? So even though you do have grocery stores, you may not always be able to buy fresh produce and fresh
Right.
food. So I was happy that she said that too. I'm so sorry. I can't remember the name, but
Well,
I was
and I
happy whoever was it.
and I think that if you're you don't have a lot of money and you got to feed your kids and you got to fill their stomachs, you could
Hmm.
buy a bunch of food, fruit and vegetables and meat for that matter, and
Yeah,
spend a ton of money, or you could spend $5 and get macaroni and cheese. Now, I
exactly.
love me some macaroni and cheese, but that's not the healthiest thing for you. Of course,
Yeah.
if you send me to the market and say get some fruit and vegetables, I'm more likely to spend that money on a case of Twinkies, but that's just me. It's not about money, it's about my personal preference. But this is such a crucial thing. If we can't at the very least feed our children properly, what the fuck are we going to do? I mean, my granddaughter, my wife was like that with our kids. My son is like that, and his mom or her mom is like that with my granddaughter. They only drink special milk. They drink fruit and vegetables every
Yeah.
time they eat. My granddaughter loves avocado, and I've never seen a grandkid or a young kid want avocado. But I guess it's a matter of training them up front early to like certain things. Like
Mhm.
she said, Grandpa, you know what my favorite thing to eat is? I go, what's that? She goes, broccoli. I go, what? Who the fuck likes broccoli? But he was trained to learn that. And it makes sense that we should try to get as many kids wanting to eat healthy. But here we have the government uh, trying to dissuade us from feeding them healthily. Now, I don't know much about EBT or the food stamps or anything like that. Are there limitations on what people can buy with that?
Yes, you can buy food, and that's it. You can't buy alcohol, you can't buy diapers, you can't buy formula, you can buy food, and that's it. If you needed help with formula, milk, that type of thing, there's a separate program, WIC, that you could get that
Right,
could help you with that type of stuff. For me personally, I wasn't able to get any state assistance, which because I don't want to say it was by choice, but it kind of was because at that time the laws were a little different in Nevada and I was leaving an abusive relationship. So when I went down to file for assistance, they look at her birth certificate and they're like, "Hey, where's her father?" And I'm like, "Well, he's not in the picture. I'm actually leaving that relationship." And so in order for me to get benefits, I would have to put him on child support in order to do that. But the problem with that was I would have to fill out court documents and stuff, which would give him access to my address, my phone number, my place of employment, all of that type of stuff. And it's like if you're leaving someone and you're being stalked, you're not going to willingly give them that information. So it was a choice between getting assistance or being safe. That's the choice that I had to make, and I chose for my daughter and I to be safe. But it
and
didn't mean that I don't care now about the children and the parents who they're trying to do this to. And I know that in um, Ohio, they actually proposed a bill. So we don't know if it's going to go through or not, but the bill would limit what you can buy on your EBT card even further. So right now, as long as it's food, you can buy it. It doesn't matter if it's fresh, frozen. There's a lot of different places you can go now. You can go to Costco's, Sam's Club, Trader Joe's. You can go to you have a bunch of different options where they sell food. You can get it. Even like 7-Eleven convenience stores, you can use your EBT card there. But now they want to limit it to where there's no fresh meat, there's no fresh cheese. Of course, they don't want you to have soda, chips, but they also don't want you to be able to get butter, and they don't want you to be able to get flour either. Um,
why would that be? I mean, these are essentials in people's diet, meat and
mhm,
cheese and butter. What's the
yeah.
sticking point there? Are they specifically trying to sabotage people and make them less healthy? Because these are normal things that people would eat.
They think that poor people are spending money on food that they shouldn't be spending money on. So there's this idea. I mentioned it to you before, but in 2018, I want to say there was this initiative that the Trump administration did called the Trump Harvest Boxes, and they
Right,
were promoting it to be similar to Blue Apron, which I guess today would be something like a Hello Fresh type of thing.
right.
But they called it a harvest box, and what they were trying to do was sell it as these are going to be from like farm to table types of food, so everything in the box would be fresh. There's no junk food in there or anything. The problem with that is there was no fresh food in that box. And he was selling it to the farmers and trying to sell it to the American people that this will actually benefit the farmers because the farmers are going to be the ones making this harvest box for the people. But there was no fresh food in there. So of course this wouldn't be benefiting the farmers at all. Everything in the box there was because they actually had like sample boxes that went out to different communities. And I just want to say that these were minority communities and these were people of color. Keep in mind that most rural families were going to be getting these boxes too. But anyway, it was like canned meat. Um, it wasn't even fresh milk, it was powdered milk in these boxes. So you would
Mm.
have to take the powdered milk and mix it with water.
Wow.
And it was like boxes of cereal. Everything was like canned. It was really bland. It was even stuff in there like I want to say like canned oysters or sardines or something like that. There were like a couple of videos that people put on like Facebook and stuff when they got these boxes. And it was like a couple of months that the people in these target areas, that's all they had was these boxes. And it failed for a few reasons. The first reason is, how are you going to implement this? Because you're trying to feed like 16 million families. Who's going to be packing these boxes? Who's going to be shipping these boxes? Who's going to be distributing these boxes? On top of that, what happens if you decide to mail the boxes instead of like handing it to people? What happens if the boxes get lost in the mail,
Right.
or if someone isn't home to receive the box, or it's stolen, or it's left outside, or it's rained on? There's all these different nuances. In addition to that, if you're taking families off of SNAP and you're sending them these boxes every week, who's shopping at Walmart? Who's shopping at the grocery stores? You know what I
Right.
mean? So now you're putting these people and these businesses out of work. So it was kind of like a logistics problem there. But the Trump administration, they were like, no, we're cutting these benefits in half by sending out these harvest boxes. So he sent it to like our communities, and of course, it was a horrible thing to see these people go through this. But then when Democrats were bringing up the logistics, how you're going to pay for it, Republicans still didn't care. But as soon as they said, okay, so let's just give these sample boxes to rural areas, let's start sending them to Kentucky and to Ohio and Iowa and all these places, then it was like,
All the red states.
yeah, because a lot of those people there, they are on SNAP benefits too.
Right.
So
Right.
I think
Exactly.
that they think that when it comes to like SNAP and EBT, it's just a bunch of brown people milking the system, and it's not like that. There's
No.
a working class poor in this country. When you work for Walmart, you're working for minimum wage. So you're getting up, you're going to work every day doing your 40 hours plus in a job that's not easy physically or mentally. And then you come home at the end of the day and you can't buy groceries for your family.
So,
Um,
so when it comes to butter and fresh meat and cheese and all
mhm.
that stuff, is it that the Republicans perceive that as luxury items and poor people
Yeah,
don't deserve luxury items?
they do see that as luxury foods. And
Wow.
the thing that I found ironic about this was this was during the Trump presidency.
Yeah.
He hosted a whole party with nothing but McDonald's for an NFL team, right?
Right. Right.
So it was like, this is the guy who's lecturing poor people on what their diet should be. And again, it was just kind of like people were buying things that they could afford. And they figured that we were just, I guess, just going to the grocery store, getting steak and lobsters. I don't know how you're going to do that when you only have $200, but your steaks, your lobsters. And I believe Joy Reid said, and then just hopping in our Cadillacs and going and kick it or something. So I do think that what they're doing, I know that Ohio introduced the bill. I know Iowa, I don't know if they've introduced the bill or not, but they did join the bandwagon of we need to reduce what it is that they're allowed to buy with their SNAP benefits. But I don't know if they introduced a bill or not. I'll have to check on that. But it made me think about those Trump harvest boxes that they were, sending out to people. And there was nothing fresh in those boxes. There was nothing green in those boxes. When you think about going and getting a pack of chicken or a pack of ground beef, they were giving you like chicken in a can, ground beef in a can, like nothing was fresh. Everything was in a can, but he addressed it as a harvest box to make it look like this was going to be fresh food for people. And there were people who were just like, yeah, it's fresh food. We don't know why the poor wants to buy, all this junk and feed it to their kids. Take one of these harvest boxes. But
Right.
when people start seeing that the harvest boxes weren't fresh, I don't really know what happened to that idea, but it just kind of like went away.
What's ironic is I saw a Republican. Now I can't for the life of me remember his name, but it was almost
Mhm.
laughable what he was saying. The Republicans are all about freedom, not getting too much involved in people's lives, just letting them live their lives. Well, except for the fact that we want
Mhm.
to control women's uh, uh, health with banning abortions, and we want to control what kind of food people get. It's amazing. They
Yeah,
say they want freedom, they want to not get involved in people's lives, and they do it more than any Democrats ever thought of doing. It's fucking crazy.
yeah. Yeah, and the sad part about it is with those boxes, the people who I don't want to say they needed to get those boxes. I don't want to say that. But the people who needed to see exactly what it is that the Trump administration was trying to do, those were the people that didn't get those sample boxes. Those were the people who didn't lose their SNAP benefits for a couple months while they wanted to see how, like, kind of like experimenting on people to see how they would handle having these boxes. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
didn't go to like the poor whites. It went to, poor Black people in certain communities that they tested these boxes out on. But I really do think if it would have went to rural America, maybe that would change their outlook on it, but I don't know. Because at some of the Trump rallies, people will say, hey, I'm on disability, or I get benefits, or I'm this, or I'm that. And they're actually there promoting somebody who wants to take all of that away.
Yeah.
Um, but it brought me back to when you read that email from Eric, it brought me back to the Trump harvest boxes. And I'm pretty sure you're going to get some emails of people who remember the 2018 harvest boxes because it was like it was a big thing. Like, how are you going to tell people that they can't buy, and even if it's not fresh food, but you can't go to the grocery store and buy food for your children? And then people didn't even mention this, but my niece, she's like allergic to peanuts. There's like certain type of peanuts she's allergic to, other ones she can. I just know don't give any peanuts when she's around me.
Right.
But there's children with dietary needs that can't have something. And when you have cans of peanut butter in this box and you're expecting, okay, this can of peanut butter can be sandwiches for a couple of days. However, your child is allergic to peanut butter. What do you do in the meantime? Like there was no answers or solutions to any of these questions that could have arose. But you know what was in that box?
Go ahead.
Goya beans.
Goya beans.
Yep.
It
There was
isn't.
like, I think like 5 or 6 cans of Goya beans in that box. And that was just for like a week. Cause I'm thinking that the boxes were supposed to come every week with these,
And, and
whatever the it was for the
and
week.
and you mentioned Goya beans. And for those folks that don't know, as far as I understand, that company is owned by a billionaire who is a big Trump fan, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And
And do you remember Ivanka Trump and the whole Goya bean?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's ironic is that they want to whatever money they give to poor people or people that need help with food, they want to
Yeah.
restrict and dictate everything they do. Yet somehow they're more than happy to send a $2 trillion cut to the rich people and you just go do whatever the fuck you want. Buy a boat. I mean, theoretically, they're suggesting trickle down. We know that doesn't work. And how do we know? Because it hasn't worked in 40 years. But still, they
Right.
pour the money into the rich people and give them no restrictions. I would think, at the very least, if you're going to give them $2 trillion, say, hey, why don't you guys pay your taxes? But they don't even ask that. They give them outs on paying taxes. I think what
Yeah.
we saw with Donald Trump in this lawsuit with his tax things, we see that he's been committing tax crimes for decades. And if we think he's
Yeah.
the only rich guy that has done that, that's crazy. They all do it. And why
Yeah.
have they gotten away from it? I mean, if you or I owe an extra $500, we got people sending shit to our house saying, you better pay this or we're going to garnish your wages. These fuckers can grift the government for millions of dollars and get away with it for decades. That's certainly um, something that should be looked at, because if we went and got those people that owed all this money, we would have more money to help folks and not have to worry about whether they can buy cheese or fucking not.
Yeah, you have the working class poor who work and just can't afford to feed their families. And you don't want to give welfare to them to help them out. However, the company that's not paying them a living wage, they can get corporate welfare, or you can get the wealthy who don't have to pay their taxes. So that's welfare for the rich. But the poor who actually need it, those are the people that they want to punish the most. And it kind of, to me, it feels like they're saying, you're poor is your fault
Yeah,
and you should suffer as long as you're poor. And then maybe if you suffer enough, you'll just stop being poor. I'm
right.
thinking that that's the mindset of where
I
these
agree.
people are. And these are people who've never had to worry about where a meal came from. They've never had to see their children hungry. They've never had to, worry about, okay, their next paycheck. Or I used to try to calculate like my overtime hours for my paycheck because that would just determine, what I could do or make a payment arrangement on this bill because I had to pay this bill in full this month. Like these people, they do not understand that. And to me, unless they feel that pain, they don't have it in them to understand someone else's suffering, or at least be able to see someone else suffering and feel it within themselves that that's not right, that's not okay, I'm not comfortable with that, that should not be happening. They
And
don't they
well,
don't have the ability to do that.
no, I don't think they have a good perspective. I've I've had periods in my life where I was tight on money and had to struggle and juggle and balance and do all kinds of shit. Maybe
Hmm.
not to the extent of some other folks or even you. I mean, people have to understand when you were talking about what the period you went through, you were a very young mother, a single mother, essentially. And on top of it, you had a former partner or husband or whatever that was putting your life at risk. He wanted to do you harm. That's a
Yeah,
hell of a position to put a 20-year-old woman with a kid and trying to pay the bills without making enough money and expecting help from a father who's nowhere to be found when it comes to help. I mean, why should somebody like you, and there's many people that were like you or that are like you were back then, why should they be punished? I mean, shouldn't we be trying to help them? I'll tell you a quick story, and my son would probably hate for me telling this story. Um, but I think it makes a lot of sense. My son was living in an apartment, my youngest son, and COVID hit and he was out of a job, but he was doing okay because he was getting unemployment and the extra checks and stuff like that. But it really
yeah,
fucked with his head mentally, you know?
yeah.
Young kids, millennials have a little insecurities anyway, and he put on a bunch of weight. He was drinking too much. And I said, listen, man, get out of the apartment, come move in with us for a while, get your bearings, and then get out in the world. Now, a lot of people came to me and said, "Why are you doing that? You're just spoiling him. That's not a good thing. You should not help him out." And I said, "Look, he's my son. It's my fucking
Yeah.
job to help him out." So now he's been there for about a year and a half. He lost 75 pounds. He's back working hard. He got a certificate to work in IT, and he'll be going in sometime after the year doing that, making a fair chunk of money. He's got a girlfriend. He's very focused on life, and he's a totally different kid. And the only
Hmm.
difference between this kid now and that kid then is I gave him a fucking shot. I gave him a helping hand. And
Yeah.
and people say, "Why would you do that?" Because of this, because
Yeah.
I don't want him coming back to me when he's 40 saying I'm desperate because I keep fucking up. I want to make him
Hmm.
good. I want to make him confident. I want to make him do things. And this can be applied to all people. Not
Yeah.
everybody who's poor is grifting the government.
Right.
Sometimes you just need a little help. And once you
Yeah.
get that help, you can do something.
Hmm. And these are supposedly Christians, evangelicals who
Yeah,
are not supposed to turn away the poor. They're not supposed to shame the poor, belittle the poor. And yet they do it anyway. And if they don't feel like they do it, they vote for people who do it. So they do have a hand in that, and they should take responsibility in that. I would have loved to have a father like you that could have helped me and my daughter during that point. My grandmother, she didn't pass until 2017, but she was very, very old school. And it was times where I went to her and I told her what was going on, and she could see physically bruises on me. And she would just be like, you know what? He's working, he's taking care of you and that baby. That's where you need to be.
right.
And then she would give me little tips to pacify him in a way. So it's like every day you have to scrub the house from top to bottom. This is so weird, you know? Like every day I'm supposed to like scrub the whole house. And she would just say, you know what? So just put some bleach and some pine saw in a pot and just boil it before he comes home from work. And then he would walk through the house and it worked. He would smell that the house was clean. And he would think that I scrubbed the house all day, that type of stuff. So it's not like I didn't know I had to live like that, but at the same time, I kind of felt like I was kind of obligated to. I didn't really, and my mom was like in and out of prison and stuff at that time. So it was like, and my brother was like in the military, and it was just like me with her. And it's like if I would have had a father who would have been like, oh no, I'm not putting up with that. You and the baby can come stay here. It would have
Yeah.
been different, but I didn't have that. And that can make a world of difference. And before I started doing the volunteer work that I do now, I used to volunteer for domestic violence in my state. So, like, if there's a lady or her child at a hospital in the middle of the night, and you have like the police telling them, like, you can't go back home, or they would tell them, if you go back home, your child has to come with us, that type of situation, then I would just let them stay here, maybe overnight for a day or two until they can find a place for them at the shelter. And so, a lot of the women and children that I came across, they would like give limbs to have a father like you to say, you know what, come here, get your bearings, and then you can go. It's not easy to do that when you don't have someone willing to just like give you a hand when you need it. And
Well,
there's people who have pride and they don't want to ask for handouts. They want to be able to afford things on their own. And when they do swallow their pride and reach out for a handout, or not a handout, but they reach their hand out for help, even if it's temporary. Like, I just need this to get me to whenever. Here you have the Republican Party slapping their hand away, saying this is your fault. Figure it out. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Why ever you're in this situation, you're in that situation and you need to fix it. We're not going to help you. We're going to take our money and we're going to give it to these rich people over here
yeah.
because they've earned it. They deserve it and you don't, which is
Well,
horrible.
Old soul, you're a testament to this whole thing. Uh, you've told the story before, but you just pointed out a couple things. How old were you when you left your
My daughter,
significant?
she was like 7, 8 when I left him, somewhere in there.
And so you were
Yeah,
like
because she was like going
22?
into yeah, because she was like going into like the second grade. I know we were on our own in the third, and when she was in the third grade. Yeah, so somewhere around in there. But he was like, older than me. I didn't
So,
know at that time because everybody always said I was like this old little old lady. So you
right,
have this grown man talking to a 15-year-old. It's like, people have been telling me like I'm mature my whole life. You know what I mean? So it
right.
didn't feel weird to me. And plus, I didn't have family. I had to help my grandmother like cook, take care of my brothers, and that type of stuff. So it wasn't like a normal childhood where I wanted to go outside and play. Which I
Well,
mean,
well,
you know,
think about this lot in life that you're handed. I'm talking to the people listening to the podcast. Here's old soul. She has a 7-year-old daughter. She's maybe 22 years old at the time. She's got an abusive husband. Her mom is in and out of jail. She has no money, and she's got to go out and be a single mother. And she doesn't have somebody like me or my wife or somebody to back her for a while to get her feet under her. But somehow she fights her way through it, does what she has to do. And now she's in her 40s, early 40s. She's got a great job. She's articulate. She's smart. And she's on this podcast. That's quite a ways to come from where you were. And if a Republican would have seen you back when you were 22, 20 years ago, they would have said, she deserves it. There's no
yeah,
hope for her. Let's just discount her. And that's why we can't discount anybody. There's a lot of valuable people that are
yeah,
struggling right now. They just need a chance to get their feet up underneath them and do
yeah.
the things they can do.
And there are people whose situations are no fault of their own. You
Absolutely.
know, you never know, especially with a country who's mostly living paycheck to paycheck. What if your company merges with another company and then all of a sudden you're laid off or you've lost your job? Maybe you can find another job, but you're not making as much as you used to make. And so, or maybe you have a child with special needs. Maybe you are trying to escape a situation that you shouldn't or that you don't deserve to be in. Um, there are people who you can't look at their situation and blame them for that. We
No.
have homeless veterans who have PTSD that's not getting the help that they need. You have homeless people who have mental illness who don't have the resources to get the help that they need. It's not their fault that they are schizophrenic or whatever the situation is with them. However, they're like frowned upon. People look down on them as if they've done something wrong, as if they've caused this. And you can say that there are going to be people who slip through the cracks. That happens. And no matter what you do, people are going to slip through the cracks. But you can't say because these few people slip through the cracks, we take it away from everybody, including those people who we know need it. You know, like when you find people who slip through the counts, you hold them accountable.
Right.
Or you put people in place to prevent as least people slipping through the cracks as possible, such as pumping up our IRS. You know what I mean? But the Republican Party, for some reason, they really do look down on people who are less fortunate than them, which is it's
Well,
so sad. You know what I mean? I don't like them owning Christianity. I don't like them owning that at all because that's not what Christians are about.
Well, and when you're talking about the Republicans, all the issues you had when you were starting out and trying to rise above it, which you did successfully, you had one other issue that was no fault of your own. You happen to be black,
Oh,
and
yeah.
people don't have any room for that. We know the Republicans are largely racists. They either are racist or they support racist, which is just as bad as far as I'm concerned. You know,
Yeah,
the question is that if we have a government who's funded by our taxes, if helping people isn't their main job, I don't know what the fuck is. Isn't that the essence of what they're supposed to be doing? Helping out this country and helping out the people in it. Yet somehow they find other ways to help people who don't need help, that are their buddies and that are going to stuff money in their pockets. That's a disconnect we have in our government. And I don't know what you think about this. Maybe you have a different perspective. I think now that all of this is coming to the surface, I think we might be in a change. You know, we might get more left in 2024, certainly in 2028. I think
mhm,
this whole financial situation where they constantly stepping on the necks of poor people or disabled people or margin or minority folks, that's starting to change now. They can't hide it anymore. Donald Trump brought it to light, and it's not, I think they're racist. No, what they just said was fucking racist. So
exactly.
it's hard to fight against that. I sense a change coming with that. I don't know. I'm an old white guy, so what the fuck do I know?
I used to think that, and part of this is true, that they are out for themselves and enriching themselves, and
Absolutely.
they enrich themselves by doing favors for their donors or, you know, whoever wants an agenda that they can afford to pay for. But I do think that it goes deeper than that because there's laws in place that I could have benefited from when you think about the Violence Against Women Act that they are trying to pick apart and certain things that they're taking up to the Supreme Court, like should an abuse a man on or a woman with a restraining order against them be allowed to carry a weapon when they're clearly a danger to another person and minors or whoever. There's policies in place now where if I was leaving a domestic violence situation, I could get government assistance because I could put my daughter's dad on child support. And the reason I could do that is because I could have a restraining order, and on the legal paperwork, my address, phone number, employer information will be redacted. At
Right.
that time, there was no laws in place that would protect me from him if I chose to go after him for child support and put that information on paper. He
Right.
would have access to that in a court filing. But now the court filing can actually redact that information. So it's certain things that they are attacking, like Violence Against Women Act, those types of things, overturning Roe v. Wade. Those things have nothing to do with enriching themselves. That is not going to benefit them in one way or the other. They're just
Yeah, but
doing it.
these people benefit at least emotionally from putting people down so they can keep their lofty perch. What I was getting at was that with the influx of young voters, millennials and Gen Zs in 2024, and they'll become the majority of the voters in 2028. Politicians are very transactional, whether we're talking about Democrats or Republicans. What
Yeah.
do I need to do to get what I want? And up to recently with the Republicans, it was marginalize those minority folks, whatever they may be, race, religion, sexual orientation, to appease the wealthy and the evangelicals and such. But once the evangelicals aren't, they realize the evangelicals aren't going to get them elected,
Mhm.
are they then going to switch and realize the best way to keep my job is to play to the middle class or the poor class? That's what I'm wondering about, because I worry about the Democrats. You know, they seem like they're all for us and helping us. And over the years, that's been the case, but they've been going extra hard on it since Donald Trump came into office. And I
Mm.
wonder sometimes, are they doing it because it's the exact opposite of what the Republicans are doing? And they believe that will get them voted in. And then when they do get voted in, will they kind of back off of it because they still have the rich people they have to appease? I'm thinking if we have enough young people voting and the vast majority liberal, they're going to come to the realization that the only way they can get reelected and stay in office is by doing their job, helping out the people of this country. Now, that might be a pie in the sky type thing, and I might be dreaming, but logic tells me they're going to do whatever it takes to stay in power. And the
Yeah.
Democrats have realized that helping the middle class and the poor is keeping them in power. And I think the Republicans, after they get their asses whipped in 2024, they're going to have to say, hey, we got to do something different. Our way isn't working, so we now have to do something. That's why I'm hoping there's a big change coming, because
Yeah.
there's going to be a realization. If I want power, I got to do what I got to do. And hopefully it's a good thing for once.
Yeah, I think that with the Democrats, they do have I can see more up and comers who are for the people, in particular in the House of Representatives. Now, the Senate, don't get me started on that, but
Yeah.
I can see like a new crop coming up that are not as archaic or as restrained by like donors and that type of thing. So that gives me hope for the Democratic Party. Any up and comers in the Republican Party are like Lauren Boebert, you know,
Right.
these type of people. And even I'm trying to think of his name. He's the black guy in the House right now. Oh my gosh. Ugh. He had his hat in the ring when they were running for Speaker of the House.
Oh, yeah. Donald, I think his last
Yeah,
name is
Donald,
Donald.
right? And for him, he has his own rap sheet. So he is, even though he's young and I would say he's more talented than them, but he has the same antics and the same greed as like Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert and just the selfishness of it.
The question
But when
is he married? Because that fucked up Tim Scott. Is he married? Do you have a sense about that?
I'm not sure if he was married or not, but I do know that he was like got caught up in some financial crimes. I know he used to sell drugs as well, and now he's in Congress. So, but I
Wow.
do know with him, based on his background, based on the way that he talks and the way he carries himself, he is definitely a minority who knows that he is a minority in the Republican Party, and he uses that to say, "Hey, the Republican." He like gives them that talking point. We're not racist. Look at Donald. Look at Tim Scott. Tim Scott is one of these people who, when we grew up, we knew to be careful who you follow and put in positions of power, regardless of their skin, because there are people who they will allow you to be part of the revolution, but not Reconstruction, if that
Right.
makes sense.
No, I
So we
get it.
were always told that.
And
Donald, he gets that, he understands it, and he knows it, versus Scott doesn't really know that. And Donald's just grifts. That's the only reason he's there for. He doesn't care. He doesn't even try to hide it.
yeah.
So with him, it is a grift. It is just like his next hustle based off of selling drugs, financial crimes. Now Congress is just a grift for him. Um,
Donald and Tim Scott in the Republican Party is akin to the the white racist motherfucker that says, "I'm not racist. I have a
yeah,
friend that's black."
yeah,
Yeah,
and
you
they're
do.
completely fine with that. And that's the difference between the two of them. Like, Donald knows it. And Tim Scott, I think to some level, he understands it. He knows it. I think he just might be in denial about it. I think he might be in denial about a lot of things, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
but at least at least he knows it, and you know he knows it, and he doesn't even try to hide it. Um, so when I look at the type of people that they are bringing into the Republican Party, the young people who are supposed to have the fresh ideas, who's supposed to be articulate, who's supposed to take over for that previous generation. When I look at the people that they're bringing in versus the people that the Democrats are bringing in, to me is complete night and day, completely different. So it gives me more hope in the Democratic Party than it does in the Republican Party because it is a pure grift. That's all it is. They don't want to do anything for the American people. They have no solutions. They have no ideas. They just want to obstruct and enrich themselves because the only way they enrich themselves is through obstructing. So that it's not about doing anything for the, just think, when was the last time they've done anything for the American people, just like anything?
Yeah. Well, if we want to be fair and balanced, and I don't really care if I am, I'm not fair and balanced when it comes to Republicans, but I do have
Yeah.
to bring this up because I think it's so fucking egregious. It's Democratic Senator Bob Menendez. Now
Oh
we heard
gosh.
now we heard the story about how he was grifting and taking bribes and working for Egypt, right? And he was indicted for that,
Mhm.
and he's going to go on
Yeah.
trial, probably go to jail for it. As if that weren't enough, now something new comes out about his connection to the country of Qatar. I think that's how you
Yep.
pronounce it. And some rich friend of his who's working out deals between them, and he's getting tickets for racing events and all this shit.
Mhm.
And this was going up through 2023. So this fucker
Yeah.
does not learn a lesson. Now, he may be Democrat, but he's one of the prime examples of the dirty pieces of shit that are in our Congress. And we
Yeah.
have to make mention of that if we're going to talk about the Republicans. And I
Oh
cannot
yeah.
believe that he's still a senator. We know that he's grifting, that he's taking bribes, he's working for other countries. George Santos is gone, but he's not gone. And people will say,
Mhm.
Democrats will say the same thing, Republicans. Well, if we do that, we won't have the majority anymore. Look, ain't nothing getting done in the fucking Congress between now and November of 2024. Doesn't
It's
make a
really
difference.
not.
No,
No, it's not.
so kick his
And
ass
then
out.
I don't think Democrats can just kind of like rest on their laurels when they're unwilling to, hold their own accountable. For me, when they say, well, we've asked him to resign, that's not enough. You don't ask someone to resign. You make that sucker resign. You know what I mean? There's other things that they can do. I think that a lot of the stuff that the Democrats are doing is for show. Like, oh, we removed him from his committee assignments. We did this, we did that. To me, it's for show. If they wanted him to be gone, he would be gone. It's just that simple.
I've never been asked to resign. I've had people say, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. Don't let
Exactly.
the door hit you where the good Lord split you. When they want you
Mhm.
gone, you're fucking gone. And there is no
Exactly.
two ways about it.
Mhm.
But the Democratic Party doesn't have nearly the problems that we know about.
Right.
Whenever any of these people want to go through a Democrat or a Republican's financial status, I've always said, if you're going into Congress, you need to lay it all bare. We need to know how much money you have, where you got it from, what you're doing, how much more is coming, because all
Yeah.
of that is relevant to whether or not you can represent the people. Are you representing the people or a foreign country or a big donor or what? We need to know that
Right.
shit.
And we need to tighten up these finance laws when it comes to politics. There shouldn't be certain PACs we don't have to track, but these we do. Like, no, we need to track all of that money. We need to track all of those donors. We need to see exactly where it's going. You know what I mean? So there's just so many different loopholes that allow for them to profit off of the American people. Well, not the American people, but the expense of us.
Right.
Our taxes. Um, it's just it's such a sad state of affairs, like all the way around. But it is slanted to the right far more than it is to the left.
Oh, without question. Money is, what do they say? The love of money is the root of all evil, and money is running rampant within our politics. If you've
Yeah.
got enough money, you can win an election, and that's been proven over and over again. I've often said, and people have suggested, get money out of politics. They always talked about teachers being paid on merit pay, how well they're doing. Why
Yeah.
not apply that to politicians? Give everybody a maximum, if you're running for president, $2 million. That's the most you can spend on advertising. If you're running for the Senate, maybe it's 1 million, the House 1 million, and so forth. That way, it's not about the money. Everybody's got the even amount. It's how you use the money and what kind of goodwill and productivity you've created while you've been in office. Now, if you've not been in office, you've got to sell them on that. But when money determines who's going to be um, representing us, that's
Yeah.
always going to be a problem. Because once people understand that, there are going to be people who want certain ideology in there, and they're going to pour money into one clown that may or may not be good. I'm not mentioning any names, but Donald Trump and Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, all these fuckers are where they are because people poured money into them.
Yeah. And I think also another thing that is just so far out of control, and I do see that we're fighting back on that as much as we can, is these maps. It is insane. Even when, Republicans, they escalate maps and the courts tell them, no, you need to redraw these maps. These are clearly racist maps. You have to redraw these maps. They will just dig their heels in and
Yeah,
refuse to redraw maps, or they want to escalate it even further and further and further. That has a lot to do with it as well, is the way that the maps are drawn. Because I heard Bo saying this the other day, and it was such a good point to where if you are a Republican and you feel like you're okay with maps being gerrymandered, that doesn't benefit you at all because it's taking away your voice as well. So when you
right,
look at certain states where, the constituents, they get out, they vote, and they want to enshrine abortion rights in their constitution, or they elect certain AGs, and then you have a governor that's like, oh yeah, thanks for voting for that, but I'm going to do it this way, or I'm going
right,
to put this loophole in the way, or I'm going to do that. You put them in a position to where the map is so gerrymandered that no matter what you vote for, they're going to do what they want to do anyway, and there's no consequences to it. So even though you may be a Republican, you're putting someone in a position of power that doesn't care what it is that you want to do, because there's enough people in that map area to where they're going to vote R regardless, which takes away your voice as well. So he was just saying Republicans who are safe, feel comfortable with these maps, you shouldn't feel safe either. Because when
right.
it comes time that is something that you care about and you're telling them through your voice that this is what you want them to do, and they can say no, then you're no good than any other minority who they're silencing. Because when they
Right.
do that, they're silencing everyone. And it takes away competition from people who actually want to work for the American people.
The one thing I've said about gerrymandering and codifying Roe v. Wade and all this other stuff, I think it bothers some people by what I say, but I'm just trying to be logical and pragmatic about it. None
Mhm.
of this stuff will truly be fixed until
Yep.
after 2024, assuming we win the House and the Senate and the presidency. I'm sorry,
Absolutely.
that's just it. The Republicans are just not going to bend. They can't listen to reason. The only thing we can do is get them out of power, put Democrats in power, and then push them to do it. So that's why it's so ultra important that people vote. We've got to get
Yeah.
people in the Democratic Party in mass out there and just burying the Republican Party. If you really want the help, if you want to codify Roe v. Wade, I've had people say to me, "Well, my vote doesn't count. I'm not going to vote." No, motherfucker,
Mhm.
you better vote. Everybody
Yep.
better vote. Let's make it a mandate that that when everybody votes, there's no question in anybody's mind what this country wants.
Yeah, and there's other countries with voting day. Like,
Right, right,
it's a holiday. It's like the 4th of July. It's a holiday. Everybody has a day off. You cast your vote. You do the rest of your day however you want to. And Republicans aren't serious about voting all on one day, because if they were, they would make sure something like that was in place, or they don't care about that. I think that goes back to what I was saying, like part of the revolution, but not reconstruction, because a
right.
lot of these politicians, they've gassed their constituents and their voters into putting them in positions of power and now they have no use for them anymore. So
Right.
now they want to reconstruct states. They want to reconstruct schools and what's allowed in school, what's not in schools, who has rights, who doesn't have rights. They want to reconstruct all of that. And the people who put them in that position, they have no say so in it whatsoever. None.
Well, and they know that if a lot of people vote, that works against Republicans. There's more
Yeah.
Democratic voters than there are Republicans. They don't want everybody to vote. And let's be honest, this is democracy. If we were in the best of all worlds, 100% of the people that could vote would vote. And
Yeah.
that's not nearly the case. And if we did that, we'd have a real sense of what people want. And then you've got Republicans bitching about Ohio or whatever, voting to maintain abortion rights. And then
Mhm.
then one politician said, "See, there you go. That's pure democracy, and that sucks." What are you talking about? You're finding out what the people want. Isn't that what you representatives are supposed to do? Or are you
That's what
telling me you know better than me? I'm sorry, you don't.
that's what they're supposed to do, but
Right.
they're not. Paxton is a prime example of that. He's like, forget these exceptions. I don't care. I said you can't have an abortion and you can't because I said so. That's my personal belief. You know what I mean? And I think that there really does have to be consequences for people who don't represent the people who elected them.
Right.
But when you gerrymander these districts, there's no competition. There's no reason for any district to be plus 27, plus
No.
this. There's no competition there at all whatsoever. And that makes absolutely no sense. There
Uh,
should be competitive races. And then when you get your seat, you should be working your butt off to do good for the American people so that you can earn that seat again. That seat should not be given to anyone. Even when it's Democrats and Republicans, I hate it when people say this person is in a safe district.
yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
have to do it. They're going to get reelected again. I hate hearing that, and I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, because if you're in a safe district, that means you don't have to do anything for the American people. You can sit back and collect your check, and you could do whatever it is that your donors want you to do, and you're not accountable to your district at all. You're just doing whatever you want.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast, but before we do that, I want you to do a little I won't say commercial because it's not a commercial, but talk about the stuff, the organization you're involved in. We talk about the abortion issue a lot with you, and we didn't get into it all that long today, but it's an important issue. And as I've said, you're the person who not only talks the talk but walks the walk. You're deeply committed to helping out. So remind folks what you're doing and what they can do if they have a need. Um, and they're in a situation where they need an abortion and they're in a state that's where it's illegal.
Yeah, definitely. You could just go online. I can leave the phone number. I don't know off the top of my head. But I can leave it in the comment section. But it is definitely the Abortion Federation. You just I'm trying to think of the website. I can't draw a
Well,
blank.
that's all right. That's all right. What we can do is,
I'm drawing a blank.
no, I'm sorry. I'm putting you on the spot here. The bottom line is there are people in states that need medical care, need abortions, and they can't get it because it's illegal in their state. What happens with Old Soul is that she works for that organization, and you say it's called the Abortion Federation.
Yeah, if you go to abortion.org, it'll have a link there where it'll take you to our website. And then you can actually do chats on the website now. So it's
Oh,
kind of
okay.
similar to text messaging. And they'll text you back. It doesn't matter what state you're in. We are aware of the laws. We are aware of the restrictions. Unfortunately, we are aware of the travel bans that they have now,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate. There's certain towns that you can't drive through if you're expected to be pregnant, or if you're a woman and they see you headed towards like a border town or something like that, you can get pulled over.
Fucking ridiculous.
Citizens citizens in those areas can write down your license plate number and report you. And
Well, I tell you what, for the people, for people,
I'm getting sad about it because
I know.
it's such a sad state of affairs.
Let
So
me just put it to the folks listening this way. Old Soul's going to be on every week, usually middle of the week, probably, unless something else changes and she can't. But but if you have questions about the abortion issue, she's very knowledgeable about it, as you know from listening in the past. She brings in women who are pregnant that need that medical attention and lets them stay with her, which is crazy as far as I'm concerned, but it gives you a sense of how committed Old
It's
Soul is to this
not,
stuff.
I've done it before with other organizations. That could be why I'm drawing a blank, but go
Girl,
ahead.
you crazy.
I've done it with battered
I
women.
know.
I've done it when it first turned over the Dobbs decision, and now this is the organization I've been with the longest, which is embarrassing because I can't give their information right now. But when you
Right.
post a video, I will definitely put it in a comment, and I'll be sure to send you an email with it as well.
Okay. Well, and my point was is if you're listening to this and you have questions about this or concerns about it, feel free to email me, and then I'll bring it up during the show, or I'll pass it along to Old Soul. And if there's any help that's needed, we will get that for you. So Old Soul, thanks for coming in today. I appreciate it. It makes my life a lot easier. It's always a better show when Old Soul or Ed or one of the other Eric or Chase or any of them coming on. It's always appreciated, and I'm glad we could figure out how to do it with me in Savannah and you in Nevada. That's worked out nicely. So I appreciate you coming in, Old Soul.
Thank you. No problem. It's always fun. It goes by really quickly. For anyone hesitating to come on, because I there's always that comment in the comment section. It goes by really fast.
It does go by fast. So it's like ripping off a band-aid. It hurts for a minute, but after that, it's feeling really good. All right, Old Soul, thank you very much. For those listening, thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. Hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.